The term precious cargo doesn't quite do this justice. Inside this 800-pound plaster wrap package, an old Nevada treasure unearthed. But when we say old, we don't mean months or years or even decades. To understand the significance of this oddly shaped find, we go way back 16,000 years. Paleontologist Eric Scott's job is to retrace the past.
The fossil-bearing dirt, called the Las Vegas Formation, covers a span of time from as much or more as 200,000 years ago all the way through to the end of the Ice Ages, around 11,000 years ago.
At the time, long before gaming became king, a different type of giant ruled this valley.
Mammoths, horses, camels, bison, lots of mammoths actually.
The name Las Vegas means the meadows. The valley's water is what attracted all kinds of life. The last animals survived until about 10,000 years ago. Their bones preserved deep in the ground until years of erosion revealed fossils. And in this wash about 30 minutes north of the Strip,
in 2003 and 2004, the Bureau of Land Management in Nevada asked us to come out and survey the area for paleontologic resources, the entire upper Las Vegas wash. And during that period of time, we discovered 438 separate, discrete fossil localities.
Hundreds of fossils right in our own backyard.
And then suddenly you see something and you go, wow, this is really great, I found something.
And once in a rare while, paleontologists will, in their book, strike gold.
What we're looking at here is part exposed of a mammoth tusk. And here is the tip of the tusk. It's going back here under the dirt, and then it's curving up. And that's the end that would have been in the animal's skull.
Scott believes this tusk belonged to an adult mammoth that lived at the end of the Ice Age.
Those animals can get anywhere from 12 to 14 feet tall at the shoulders, so they're very, very large animals.
And nature has preserved the tusk fully intact for all these years.
And we've gotten a lot of tusks, but most of them are much more partial tusks. Not quite as big, as long.
Now, man takes over where nature left off.
So this is definitely the nicest so far, and may end up being the nicest of the whole project.
To preserve the tusk, it has to come out of the ground.
Being exposed to the elements, eventually it's going to degrade.
You're going to just go like this, you roll it around your fingers. The reason I'm putting the paper on there, just plain old toilet paper, is to keep the plaster from sticking to the fossil, because this is all going to get covered with plaster and burlap.
Think of this as building a giant carrying case, layer after layer, and after a night of drying off,
that forms a hard protective cap.
Ready?
Yeah, baby.
Perfect.
This tusk hasn't moved since the end of the Ice Age.
We're in.
Now it's on its way to a brand new home. We followed the mammoth tusk here to San Bernardino County, California, where there are hundreds of other buried treasures from Nevada. We'll show you some of those fossils and tell you what they're doing here in part 2 of our special report. Hetty Chang, News 3.
We have some horse teeth. It's a little baby mammoth tooth.
Wow.
Little baby mammoth tooth and large mammoth teeth over here.
If this is the size of a mammoth tooth, imagine the size of the actual animal. For museum curator Kathleen Springer, it's her job to paint the whole picture, even if she only has one piece.
We want to know a lot of things. What kind of plants were around? What were they eating? What did they do for a living? What was the environment like?
These fossils are from our own backyard, the upper Las Vegas wash known as Tule Springs, just 30 minutes north of the Strip. Here the fossils are studied, stored, and eventually put on display.
All of these cabinets are fossils from Las Vegas.
But this is not Las Vegas. It's the San Bernardino County Museum just east of Los Angeles. A federal grant allowed museum curators full access to Tule Springs.
We were awarded a grant to collect these fossils, to get them out of the ground finally, to study them, to curate them, and this museum is what is called a federally recognized repository, meaning, you know, we got the gold standard you know, by the federal government.
We don't have anything like that in Nevada, which is why what's found here is not kept here. But way back when these animals roamed the earth in the Ice Age, there was no here nor there.
These animals knew no geopolitical boundaries. They just cruised around back and forth. They didn't know there was a future boundary there.
At the time, Las Vegas, which translates to the meadows, was rich with life.
It's amazing. Just kind of think about that entire city is built on this vast marsh. I mean, it's this kind of the story of water. So that's what's really neat about the Upper Las Vegas Wash, is that it's this nearly complete sequence that spans from about 225,000 years ago all the way to the end of the Ice Age, all the way to the end when these animals croaked, if you will, when they went extinct.
And for all these years, their fossils have been preserved deep within the surface. Time peels away the layers, and sometimes nature preserves fossils so well that paleontologists make a find like this.
This is the jacket as it came back in from the field, and clearly it's still encased in plaster.
Inside this oddly shaped package is a 6-foot-long mammoth tusk found in the wash, fully intact. We were there when excavators carefully removed the dirt around the tusk.
I'm about ready to do some plaster now.
It's wrapped with layer after layer of plaster, left overnight to dry.
Perfect.
Then hoisted on a truck and brought to San Bernardino. But the protectors of Tule Springs wash area hope to one day keep Nevada's fossils right where they are.
And that's what we're hoping to have, is a visitor center and the ability for the public to see what you saw.
Jill DeStefano, president of the protectors of Tule Springs, has made that her personal mission.
We are waiting for legislation to make this a national monument managed by the National Park Service. But that's a long, long road to get legislation through Congress. So someday, maybe those fossils will have a home here in Nevada.
But for now, these fossils are being kept safe just next door.
And we're just trying to tell this really big picture story, and literally Las Vegas is a linchpin in this story. We're really excited to tell it.
And paleontologists like Eric Scott will keep digging.
It really is a treasure trove, not just for what we have found, but for what is still out there right under the surface, just waiting to be discovered.
A never-ending story, its beginning chapters ready to be told. Eventually, some of those fossils will move upstairs here to this brand new exhibit, 6 years in the making. Pieces of Las Vegas history, a small part of a very big picture. Hetty Chang, News 3.